Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Don't Be Ridiculous podcast. I think we're on episode 93 or 94. Can't tell you. Can't remember at this point. But yeah, it's football's in full swing now. We had an interesting weekend of college and the NFL. It seems like I say that every week, but it's always true. And lots to talk about. But where I wanted to jump in was the amount of coaching malpractice this weekend, especially in college, was quite eye opening. I don't remember if there were a whole bunch of situations in the NFL that necessarily where I thought coaches were, completely ridiculous. But I don't know what happened. I don't know if it was a full moon on Saturday or what happened, but my goodness, it was completely insane. So we'll start with University of Miami. University of Miami has they have a 3-point lead. There's 33 seconds to go when they snap the ball the last time. And instead of just taking a knee, which is the logical thing to do, you see it every week in every football game. When somebody has the game won, they just snap the ball to the quarterback. Quarterback takes a knee, clock runs out, end of game. Georgia Tech has no timeouts. Now, first of all, I just want to start here. Miami looked pretty pathetic in this game. I don't think they scored until nearly the end of the third quarter. Like, it was a really sad performance by the University of Miami for a team that has shown to be pretty good this year to be stinking it up against Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech got blown out last week at home by Bowling Green. Okay? So for the University of Miami to lose, number one, to be in a dogfight with Georgia Tech in the fourth quarter, that's inexcusable in itself. But to lose this way, so they instead of taking a knee, they run the ball. The guy fumbles, which you're looking at the replay. I didn't think it was a fumble. It looked like the guy's elbow was on the ground, so the referees missed the call, but never mind that. And then they allow somebody to get behind the defense and Georgia Tech to throw a 50-yard pass to win the game for a touchdown. Instead of, they were up 3. It's just hold them to at least a field goal, and maybe you can get him in overtime. But they allow the guy to run all the way down to the end zone and score. And it's just like, it's one of those things, Clark. I'm watching it going, whatever. And I couldn't believe it. I was just like, you got to be kidding me. Like, it was the craziest thing. I was screaming. I was like, what's going on here? It was just a freak show. And then the other one that blew my mind, I mean, I was obviously the worst. That's one of the worst coaching decisions I've ever seen in my life.
Tim Hasselbeck, who was calling the game for ESPN, said that's one of the worst coaching blunders I've ever seen at this level. So he was talking about college.
And he was saying it before the play happened. He was like, why aren't they taking a knee? Like, why do they keep running the ball? Like, this makes no sense. And I've heard all these reasons why. And it's like, well, they wanted the running back to get over 100 yards, and and I'm just going, like, that better not be the reason. Like, that better not be true. Like, that's all I could say. Because, and the thing is, to set the scene here, like, Mario Cristobal you look like, okay, University of Miami's moving in the right direction. They played well this year. They played Texas A&M earlier this year. They blew them out at home. They looked good. Like, we're thinking, okay, this is great. They're going to be undefeated. They're playing North Carolina next week. Like, it's all set up. They got to play North Carolina, Clemson. They could end up in the ACC championship game. Like, this could be an awesome season. And then they just completely fart out a loss like that. It was just, I couldn't believe it. Like, you should be, like, honestly, if Mario Cristobal was less accomplished, if he hadn't just only been there, this is only his second year, like, if he'd been there a while, like, I would advocate, like, should this guy be fired? Like, should we talk about that? Because that was that bad. Like, and I'm not a let's fire the coach guy. That's not how I operate, but in this case, like, it's almost warranted. Like, you literally, I don't know how you stand. Like, you saw the tweet from Mike Lombardi. I don't know how Mario Cristobal stands in front of his team after that. It's like, dude, you literally lost us the game.
Yep.
Like, your stupidity literally cost us the game. So, the other one that just blew my mind was USC was in a dogfight with Arizona. It was late Saturday night, especially on the East Coast. And, it ended up going to overtime and USC ended up winning. But so USC gets the ball. It's a tie game. All right, they have the ball down near the end zone, right? So they're thinking, okay, run the clock down, kick a field goal, we'll win the game, no problem. The first down, USC tries to throw the ball. Which I'm just like, okay, it's one thing to throw the ball. Like, I get it. You don't want to, you don't have any. I think they still had a timeout left, so I don't know why they were worried about that. But they throw the ball behind the line of scrimmage. Guy gets tackled. I'm like, okay, why are we doing that? Number one. Number two, then the next play they try, it's like, okay, just kneel in the middle of the field to set up the kicker. And then they try to run a read option. Caleb Williams fumbles. Thank God he falls on it. Okay, so they get the ball back, and then they try to kick a field goal, and they screwed that up. The snap was high, and they couldn't get the kickoff, so they couldn't win the game. Now, thank goodness, Arizona was just moronic. I don't know why Arizona didn't go for two in the first overtime to win the game. So they got away with that one. I don't know how they managed to win that nonsense game. But it was one of those things I'm just like, I couldn't believe it. I had hands on my head. I'm like, what are we doing? So just stupidity in that game. And then one that just, like, I know nobody noticed this unless you were watching the game, and nobody cares because Alabama ended up winning the game. But so Alabama, there's about a minute and a half to go. Okay, they get the ball back. Texas A&M, again, no timeouts. Okay, they snap, and I'm thinking, all right, just either take a knee or run the ball or whatever. They throw a pass. On the first play, he tries to throw a screen pass out to the wide receiver, throws the ball into the ground, so it's an incomplete pass. So the clock stops. I'm like, what are you, like, this is Nick Saban, for Christ's sake. What are you doing? Now, they ended up, they took a knee on the next two plays, and they punted the ball. They ended up winning. Thank goodness. Texas A&M's offense really sucked, especially in the second half. They weren't able to do anything. So they managed to win, but, I mean, literally, like, and they said it, Gary Danielson said it on the broadcast, I don't understand why they didn't take three knees and just go home. Like, why are we doing this? So I don't know what's going on with these coaches. When it's Nick Saban doing it, it's like, what are you doing? Like, it's horrific.
Yeah. Well, and those are obviously all, terrible. And the thing you got to remember is, and there's another one that I want to point out in the NFL that happened on Monday night, and the coach got bailed out. But the point I want to, which is actually perfect, because the point I want to make is, Jason Timpf on his podcast, Hoops Tonight, he often talks about, like, with NBA offenses, he's like, look at the process, don't look at the results. Did you have a good process? Because if you have a good process, a lot of times it'll work out. Sometimes it won't, but that doesn't mean it's a bad process. You can't just go by results, because the process of getting to the result may have been a bad process that if you keep doing it, if you repeat it, it'll cause you problems later, or it won't work and it'll cost you a game. Okay? So, like earlier this season, Brandon Staley got bailed out twice, because he made two bad calls, and, fortunately his defense bailed him out. But on Monday night, the Packers were playing the Raiders, right? So the Raiders are up 17-13, okay, late in the fourth quarter. McDaniels decides to try to kick like a 50-yard field goal, or more than 50. It was like more. I think it was more than 50 yards. Okay. Now let's think about this. If you make the field goal, you're up 7. Okay, the other team's going to have like 2 minutes to go. Now, granted, it's Jordan Love on the other side. We don't know if he's really any good yet, but still, they may be able to score a touchdown and take you to overtime. So you won't lose the game, but I mean, you're not going to win the game there. Okay. And then you got to think about what happens if you don't make it. Well, you're giving them good field position. And also look at that game. The Packers had only scored 13 points. They were up 13-10 at the beginning of the fourth quarter. They didn't do anything else. Okay. The rest of that quarter, then they get the ball, but now, so anyway, the Raiders kick the field goal. They miss. So the Packers have good field position. Jordan Love ends up throwing an interception. The Raiders end up winning the game. But
right.
What's wrong with just punting the ball there? Make them drive the length of the field. Why would you give them extra? And also, in the context of the game, they only scored 13 points. But when they got to 13, they were at 10. They drove down, they got close to the goal line, and they still couldn't score. So to me, that says your defense against the Packers is pretty good, and the Packers are struggling to score. They also have not a rookie quarterback, but a quarterback who's starting for the first time in his career after being on the bench for 3 years. Okay? What's wrong with punting the ball? Just punt the damn ball away. Make them go down the field. If they go down the field and beat you, they go down the field and beat you. But I just find it so funny that, like, some of these coaches, they get into these situations where they go, okay, I'm going to push all my chips into the middle of the table. And a lot of times they do it, and it's like, well, this is not the time to do that, because this is not a do or die scenario. It's not like if you're, it's a close game and you score with like under, 30 seconds left and you're down there, you could decide to go for two and basically end the game. Okay, that's
Right.
a do or die scenario, and that I actually support. Because if you make it, you win the game. You don't have to worry about going to
But
overtime.
just to interrupt, though, the criticism that I've heard, like from the TV shows, because I didn't see the end of this game, was that they didn't go for it on fourth down.
Well, I mean, okay, maybe you could argue that would have been better because when you kick a field goal, you have to get back like 5
And
yards
I'm
from
on
the line.
I'm on your side. Like, I think you punt them deep and make them earn it. I totally agree with you. I'm not on the you should go for it, but but by the way, going for it is better than kicking a field goal. Like, to me,
Yeah,
number one would be punting. Number two would be go for it. The field goal will be last on my list.
yeah,
This is something that I've noticed for the last several years in football is these guys kicking long field goals, not understanding that, by the way, they get the ball right where you kick it.
yeah,
So if you're kicking a long field goal, you're giving them good field position. When you miss a field goal, it is a turnover. Like, I don't
yeah.
think people realize that. It doesn't get counted in the turnover column, but it is a turnover. So it's one of those things that's hidden in the game that people don't pay attention to. And yeah, I don't know who's teaching. Like, Mike Lombardi's been talking about this for years. Nobody's teaching these coaches the process of being a head coach and what game management is. Nobody's teaching them. These guys all know how to be good coordinators. Josh McDaniels knows how to be a good coordinator. No idea how to manage being a head coach.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's, again, we'll keep talking about it. I'm sure we'll be talking about this for, you know, many episodes to come because these coaches just keep doing this shit. And
It's
the
not
pro
even
and the
like
college level.
right, like going for it or not going for it. Like, those are okay. We can argue about that decision. The things that Alabama and USC and the University of Miami were doing, these are not arguable. These are obvious things that everybody knows you should do. So it's just like I couldn't believe it.
Another example where I'm kind of on the fence about it. So the Titans were down 20-16 to the Colts,
Right,
right?
right,
The Titans are driving. They were pretty deep in Colts territory, so a field goal would have been pretty much a gimme at that point, right? And if you kick the field goal, you're down one. So then, if you get the ball back and you score a touchdown, get a 2-point conversion, you could tie the game, go to overtime, right? But Vrabel decided to go for it. They didn't get it, and then the Colts went down the field. They kicked a field goal, and then I think Tannehill threw an interception. Right. I think that was how that game ended. So that one, I can kind of defend going for it on fourth down. Because, I mean, you got all the way down there. Maybe you don't think you're going to get down there again, and you still had another shot, because if you held them to a field goal, then okay.
Right.
So that's one of those where I can be on the fence about it. But some of these other decisions, it's like, guys, you're literally putting your team, like, people, and I think a lot of fans don't understand this. It's like, you're literally putting your team in a position where you could lose the game, or you're making it much more likely that you're going to lose the game. So, but people are so obsessed with like, oh, well, if he got it, well, what if you don't get it? As the head coach, you have to think about what happens if I don't get the fourth down. So, anyway.
Yeah. So a lot of coaching malpractice this weekend is what I'm calling it. Coaching malpractice. It was a bit of a disaster in some of these games. So let's. I mean, we were I started talking about college football, so let's just start from there. Georgia looks like Georgia again. Beat the living crap out of Kentucky at home, and they look like the best team. I think that was obviously not a good game, but I can understand them being number one. I mean at this point, like looking at the way college football is, I think Georgia is likely to. I think they're likely to make the playoff. I don't think there's anybody else in the SEC that's at their level at this point or anywhere close. And I don't think they're going to beat them. But that being said, wouldn't surprise me if Alabama's in the SEC championship game, just because you look at the rest of the teams and Tennessee and LSU. I just don't, and Auburn. I just don't know that those teams are going to beat them. But that's not to say that Alabama's awesome. Alabama makes a lot of plays, but they also make a lot of mistakes. And so they did enough against Texas A&M to get by. The combination of the defense playing really well and Jalen Milroe making enough plays to keep them in it. But they could lose. The thing is, Alabama could win all those games. They could also lose at least 2 of them because they make so many mistakes. They allow these games to be close, and when you allow these games to be close, it becomes the chances of you losing get a lot higher. So I thought that was interesting. But the game of the weekend was the Oklahoma-Texas game. I mean, it's one of those games, Clark. This game, just because of that, it's on a neutral field. It had like a legitimate. It's the most legitimate neutral field that there is because half the crowd is Texas fans, half the crowd is Oklahoma fans. It's at the Texas State Fair, so it's absolutely insane, and the atmosphere is just incredible. And it was one of those games. Like, I thought Texas made some mistakes and Alabama capitalized on them. And, I still think, if you go player for player, I think Texas probably has a better team, but they weren't the better team in that game. And Oklahoma deserved credit for the defense that they played, coming down at the end to score at the end. But that was a game that could have easily gone either way. And I don't think Texas is done yet. I think Texas still has a chance. These teams could probably going to rematch in the Big 12 championship game. We'll see, which I hope that would be awesome. But that's a hell of a turnaround for Oklahoma from where they were last year to play like they did yesterday. That was quite impressive.
Yeah, it was a really exciting. I mean, just that's one of those things that the NFL can't replicate, like the atmosphere at that. Like when you're even just watching on TV, like you just see how well. Especially I was watching the Field Pass with Pat McAfee, and so he's like on the field, and so you just see how like crazy everybody is, and just everybody's just really into it, and it's just like, and that's the thing. Like even when we go to the 12-team playoff, those games are still going to matter because those are rivalries that go back. That's like over 100 years old. So yeah, that's still going to matter, and it still comes down to like, I mean, that's like what Matthew McConaughey was saying during the game, which I know I'm quoting Matthew McConaughey, but he was like, yeah, you win this game, then you basically get bragging rights for the rest of until next year, because you won that rivalry game. It's the same thing with like Bama and Auburn, and I mean some of like Michigan, Ohio State, same thing.
Yep.
Same kind of rivalry. So yeah, it was an awesome game to watch.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. And the noon, it was crazy. Like all the good games on Saturday were in the noon window. So it was like, the Missouri LSU game was nuts. That was just an insane asylum the whole time. You had no idea what's going on with LSU's defense. So LSU's their games are just awesome because it's just you never know what's going to happen. The offenses are marching down the field. Jaden Daniels is going nuts. So it's wild. So I hope the rest of their games continue like that. Unfortunately, their defense isn't good, but that's the reason why the games are like that. But I hope that continues. I think I watched on Sunday morning. I watched the USC Arizona game in its entirety, and Clark, USC is a fraud. They're a fraudulent team, and we just need to accept it. Like we talked about, I just talked about LSU's defense not being good. LSU is at least playing good teams and getting lit up by good teams. Ole Miss and Missouri are pretty good. USC is getting lit up by San Diego State, Arizona State. Arizona State has 1 win; they're 1-5. Arizona was lighting them up with a backup quarterback. Like USC's defense is a joke. It's a travesty. What's going on with them? They literally, they can't stop a nosebleed, and
it sounds like Lincoln Riley is the Mike D'Antoni of college football. Because this goes back to Oklahoma. His defenses weren't good there either.
Yeah, all offense. Very little defense. They can't tackle anybody. So I think it's fascinating, just the way this team plays. But I thought it the whole season. Nobody's getting through the Pac-12 without losing a game. I don't think there's going to be an undefeated team in the Pac-12 just because there's so many. The teams are so close together. But there's no way to me USC wins the conference. I don't think they're beating Oregon or Washington, and with a team like that that's just so unbalanced toward one side or the other. And the thing is, USC's offense didn't play well, and they still scored 28 points. So it's in regulation, and then they got, the 2 touchdowns in overtime. But, yeah, I don't know if they can keep this up. And that brings up, this is going to be a fascinating game. They're going to Notre Dame this weekend, okay? And it's supposed to be windy and rainy. So we'll see how it goes. Like, look, and I was surprised when I looked at the lines, like Notre Dame favored by 3 points. And I was just kind of like, really? Like, I watched Notre Dame and they just got their ass kicked by Louisville. And so I'm kind of fascinated because crazy shit happens in all these USC games. And so we could get a wild one because I have no idea what's going on with USC. If their offense doesn't really play well, they could be in trouble, but they can score so quickly. Literally, like Notre Dame could probably have the ball for 45 minutes in the game. USC could probably still beat them. Just because of that's the way that they're structured. So and back to talk about Notre Dame for a second. Notre Dame's not good. I mean, I don't know another way to say it. I've been watching them in the past few weeks. They lose a heartbreaker to Ohio State, which I really don't think they've ever gotten over it. They managed to win a game at Duke that looked as awful as it could in a win, and then they just get throttled by Louisville. And I don't know what's going on. I don't know if it's the players they have are not as good as we thought they were, or what the deal is. But they're certainly not making the playoff, and man, they are not fun to watch at all. That is like watching paint dry. So I'm really fascinated by that. But what do you think? You agree with me that USC is a fraud?
I mean, it seems like it. I mean, when your defense is that bad, I mean, you got it. Like, especially the teams they're playing. Same thing with Notre Dame. I mean, I have no interest in watching Notre Dame play. I mean, it's not fun. Okay. They seem to not be able to do very much at all on offense for most of the game. So.
Yeah. So before we move on to the NFL, I mean, I just want to say, listen, man, I was wrong about Colorado. Like, they got 4 wins, and they're probably going to win 2 more games and go to a bowl. So I was definitely wrong about that. That was really impressive that they're able to make them into a decent team that quickly. And LSU, man, boy, I was really wrong about them. Like, I thought LSU was a championship contender, and the teams that I picked for the playoff are still alive: Georgia, Michigan, and Oregon. 3 out of the 4 anyway. LSU obviously is in big trouble, and but I'm just shocked because it's one thing if you just, all right, well, their scheme's bad and they don't have the players. LSU has 3 or 4 guys on their defense that are going to be in the NFL. A couple of them are going to be first round picks. So I don't get it. I don't understand. You can't stop Missouri? Like these aren't even like Lane Kiffin. I get it. Lane Kiffin, they can pile up points on people. I understand that. But Arkansas, you're giving up 30 points to, and Missouri's lighting you up in the first half. Like, I don't know what's going on there, and it doesn't look like it's getting fixed anytime soon.
Well, some people, they criticize Brian Kelly at Notre Dame. They're like, well, he can't win big games. Well, I would push back on that and say he's at Notre Dame. I mean, there's a limit to how many good players he can get, and he would get into these big games against teams that were clearly much better than Notre Dame. But now that makes you wonder, because he's at LSU and they clearly have the players. Okay?
Yeah.
I mean, you can be a bad coach at LSU and you still get great players there. So I don't understand it. Like, I mean, they got their asses kicked by Florida State. And Florida State is good. They're not, right. I don't think they're great. They're pretty good. But, I mean, for you to just, in the first game of the year, you've been planning for this, all off season, and you get your asses handed to you in the first week of the season. I mean, so.
Well, and you give up 55 to Ole Miss. Like, Ole Miss is a good team, but let's not go crazy here. 700 something yards. Like, it's one thing to be, all right, our defense needs some work, but man, that is rough. The other thing I wanted to say was, I hear a lot of people going, well, the Pac-12 is the best conference, blah, blah, blah. And, we get into this whole debate because people think the SEC gets too much credit and they're overrated and they shouldn't get this much, whatever. And it's like I'm not going to sit here and tell you I know what the best conference is. I don't. But what I'm going to say is, the Pac-12 teams are all pretty good. They're all good enough to beat each other. I don't know that means, oh, well, they've got the best conference now because of that. I would say this, they're definitely in the conversation because the Big Ten is basically a 3-team conference and the rest of it's pretty much dog shit. So, but the SEC does, like, if you put a couple of the teams that are like in the middle of the SEC, South Carolina, Kentucky, like they would beat a lot of Big Ten teams, in my opinion. So I don't know that, does that mean the Pac-12 is the best conference? We'll see. But we don't have a lot of out of conference games or a lot of evidence to show what really anybody is. So it's hard for me to.
Same thing with people saying, well, Michigan, I think, is the best team. They have not played anybody. Okay?
Right.
Like, literally, I have no idea.
Yeah, you don't know how good some of these teams are, and that's the thing with the Pac-12. I don't know how good they are because they're all the only teams they're playing are each other. So I can't really. It's hard for me to tell. And like Washington's scoring all these points, but again, they haven't played. Now Washington plays Oregon this Saturday, so we'll find out. What happens? Who's legit from that? But yeah, I'm not going down that road of, well, they're the best conference. I think my opinion on this whole thing is, like, I think the SEC is still really good, probably the best. I just think a lot of these other teams have been able to catch up to it. And Colin Cowherd said it on his show today. Now, and this may sound a little bit disturbing to some people, but now it's not just the SEC paying players.
Yeah.
Everybody gets to pay players now. So it looks a little more, I think college football looks a little more even because of that. I think the other conferences are starting to work their way up. I think they've gotten better. I don't think the SEC has necessarily gotten worse.
Right.
Yeah. So, all right. So moving on to the NFL. Let's get the Dolphins. That's right. How about them Cowboys? You want to do the Cowboys first? Or you want to talk about the Dolphins first?
Let's get the Cowboys out of the way.
All right. So every year, this is what happens. The Cowboys bandwagon just grows. There's not a lot of people on it, and then all of a sudden, everybody piles on. All these shows, lots of people just, I think this is the Cowboys' year. It just seems like it's like the same thing that happens with Texas. It's the same thing that happens with the University of Miami. We're back. This is what happens. Everybody comes in, jumps, the bandwagon gets full. Everybody's like, oh my God, we're awesome. And then, the Cowboys play a team that's really good and they get beat because the Cowboys are inferior. And it's not to say that the Cowboys are a bad team. They're not a bad team. No, they're a good team. They make the playoffs. They usually win more than 10 games. Like, they got a good team. But I was just especially this year, I was just really confused because the Cowboys really didn't improve their team from last year to this year. Like it's basically the same team except they changed offensive coordinators. They got rid of Zeke Elliott, right? They basically have one legitimate wide receiver in CeeDee Lamb, one legitimate running back in Tony Pollard, and Dak Prescott, and it's essentially the same team it was last year. The defense is pretty good. It's not great, but it's pretty good. And this is kind of what you get. So I'm just confused. Why did everybody think things would be different for the Cowboys? Is it just because that's what happens every year or what?
Yeah. So I would echo that sentiment also, because I didn't get it. Like when I'm seeing Nick Wright say, oh, well, I think this is the Cowboys' year to go to the Super Bowl. This is the best team they've had in 25 years. I would actually push back on that. I think the team that they had with Romo, and they had the really, really good offensive line and DeMarco Murray, and they made the playoffs. They beat Detroit, albeit on some bad refereeing. But then they played the Packers in Green Bay. They had that pass to Dez Bryant.
Right, Dez Bryant.
It wasn't a catch. But if, say, he catches that, maybe they win that game, they go on to play Seattle. Seattle was vulnerable that year. I mean, they shouldn't have made the Super Bowl. They had to really, get a really lucky win against Green Bay in the NFC Championship game. So, and by the way, the Cowboys' offensive line at that point, all those guys were young. They were really good. That was clearly the best offensive line in the league. Okay? Defensively, I mean, I guess they were pretty good. I don't remember who they had at the time. But yeah, so the idea that this is the best Cowboys team in 25 years, okay. First of all, I disagree. I think there were other Cowboy teams that were better. And also, what about this team was so great? Dak Prescott's won 2 playoff games. He beat a Seattle team that Dallas was clearly better than. Okay? Then he beat the Bucs last year, and the Bucs last year were a disaster. Okay? So, and Brady was just about done. So I don't see why that's so impressive, you know. And Dak Prescott is, again, this is what's so funny to me. Like, I don't really want to rip on Dak Prescott. He's had a pretty good career. 4th round pick, comes in, wins a couple playoff games. He's won a bunch of games. He's made the playoffs several times. Like, he's pretty good. He's getting paid a lot of money. But, he's not an elite quarterback. I don't think any reasonable person thinks that he's on the same level as, like, the top 4 or 5 quarterbacks in the league. Like, clearly not. He doesn't play that well in big games. He doesn't play that well from behind. And also, look at the rest of this team. Outside of the defense, what is so great about the offense? The offensive line is, again, I was talking about the team from like 2014. That's like 10 years ago. Their offensive line is not that good anymore. It's good, It's probably one of the better offensive lines. It's not the best. The 49ers offensive line is clearly the best right now. You look at their receivers. Does anybody talk about CeeDee Lamb as one of the best receivers in the league? You can
Nope.
criticize like the Buffalo Bills wide receiving corps, but they at least have Stephon Diggs. He's really good. The Chiefs, we can criticize their receiving corps, but they do have Travis Kelce, Hall of Famer. The Cowboys don't have anything like that. And also it's like, well, think about, okay, Mike McCarthy. What is Mike McCarthy as a head coach? I mean, they won the Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers. I mean, okay, but you didn't do anything else really the rest of the time there. You made the playoffs a bunch of times, but you kept getting beat, badly in some cases. As a play caller, he's not that innovative. He's not doing anything that really makes Dak Prescott's job all that much easier. And Dak Prescott, he throws a lot of interceptions. He's not as mobile as he used to be. What is it about this team that makes you guys think that? And also, the people who think that, the 49ers and the Cowboys aren't that far apart. No, they're clearly much farther. The 49ers are clearly much better than the Cowboys. Okay? And you can get into whether you think Dak Prescott's better than Brock Purdy or not. Brock Purdy just doesn't have that much experience yet. So we don't really know. Okay? But when you just watch the 49ers play, look at how they dominate the lines of scrimmage. Look at the talent they have on defense. You have Kyle Shanahan, who's arguably the greatest offensive mind in the league right now. It's outside of like Andy Reid, or Sean McVay or something. So again, why did people think that this team was going to be different? I don't get it. I understand if you want the Cowboys to be really good, but they're clearly not. They're just, they're a decent team. They're not bad. I'm not saying they're terrible. They're just, they're okay.
Right. Yeah. It's the same thing that's going on. Yeah. You watch that game, and Clark, it was 42-10 in the third quarter, and then everybody got pulled. Like, it's not like, oh, well, the Cowboys were competitive. No, they weren't. That game was over. They could have hung 60 or 70 if they wanted to. Okay. They chose not to. So it's not like we're, 32-point win, and it was not as close as the score. So, but you said something interesting that I want to bring up. Like people like the defenders of Dak say, well, he's a top 10 quarterback. Okay. But people are, and I think we've talked about this before. People are getting that mixed up. Just because you're in the top 10 doesn't mean you're elite. Like, that's what I think people are missing. Like, and this is my opinion is this. I think there are 5 or 6 elite guys. Okay, so I think it's Burrow, Mahomes, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, Trevor Lawrence. You want to put Lamar Jackson in there, Aaron Rodgers, Matthew Stafford. We could talk about that, but I think there's 5 for sure that are these guys are. I think these guys are elite, right? And then after that, I think Aaron Rodgers and Matthew Stafford to me are in like the next tier below that. Like, they have the ability to be elite. Like Lamar Jackson, Aaron Rodgers, Matthew Stafford. They have the ability to be elite, but they're not as consistently elite as those top 5 guys are. And then after that, I think it's basically all about the next 6 or 7 quarterbacks are all the same. Dak Prescott, Kirk Cousins, Ryan Tannehill, Derek Carr. I don't see a whole lot of difference. I think they're all the same when you get into that category.
Yeah, and I think the deal is that those really, really top elite quarterbacks, remember, it's an exclusive category. You can't have 15 elite quarterbacks, okay?
Right.
It's an exclusive category. And what do we mean by that? Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, they can change the outcome of games because of how they play. They can do stuff that it's like the defense played really well. It doesn't matter. We're gonna beat you. You know, they can that's a totally game changing thing. They can put the team on their back and make them win the game. There's only a few quarterbacks in the league at any given time that can do that. Okay, Dak Prescott doesn't do that. Okay, no offense to the guy. Like I said, he's had a nice career. He's going to continue to have a nice career. Probably going to make a lot more money. But, he doesn't change stuff. If the Cowboys have a lot around him, the Cowboys can be pretty good. And even now, they don't technically have a ton around them, but they got a really good defense. They're probably going to make the playoffs again this year. They'll probably win like 10 games. So he's good enough for that. But when it comes to you're playing the 49ers, you're outmatched, we need you to go be special, he's not that guy.
Yeah, and like I said, there's no difference between Dak Prescott or Kirk Cousins or Derek Carr or Ryan Tannehill or any of these other quarterbacks you want to name.
One guy's just got a star on his helmet.
Yeah, I mean that's all it is. So it's like the argument for Dak. Oh, well, he's a top 10 quarterback. Okay, that doesn't really matter. There's never been 10 elite quarterbacks in the NFL ever. Maybe that's going to change. Well, probably not. But that's never been the case where there were 10 guys that were like all in the Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen class. So I just thought that was interesting. As far as the 49ers go, Clark, I mean, that offense is special. I don't know.
The defense is special.
The defense is special. The whole team's special. I don't know why I'm singling out the offense, but I'm just saying from what I'm watching, I'm just going. I mean, I don't know how good Brock Purdy is. I'm not going to get into the how good is Brock Purdy debate, but he's good enough to win a lot of games on this team. And even if he's just by the way, if he's just Jimmy Garoppolo where he doesn't get hurt and doesn't make the big mistake, that's all they need. That's all they need to win the Super Bowl. People are getting caught up in this nonsense about, oh, well, how good is he? Do you think he's elite? It doesn't matter, folks. All he's got to do is run their offense correctly, and it's a nightmare to try to stop. And
the other thing is, think about the rest of the NFC, okay? I mean, you got the Eagles. I like the Eagles. I think on both lines of scrimmage, they're really good. And I think they're, over the course of the season, I think their offense will get better. But they can run the ball. We know they can run the ball, and their defense is really good. So to me, it's between the 49ers and the Eagles. I mean, and everybody else is kind of looking up at them. I mean, I like Seattle. I like Detroit. And the Cowboys are good, but we just saw them get their asses kicked by the 49ers. So, yeah, everybody else is looking up at them. And so if you're the 49ers, I mean, like you said, if Brock Purdy just go out there, run the offense, make good reads, don't fuck it up for your defense, and if they can run the ball, it's over. They're going to the Super Bowl. Now again, it's really early in the season, and injuries could derail anything. They could derail any of these teams. So the 49ers, they've pretty much got everybody there. They're healthy, and when it's like that, they're scary. They're really hard to beat.
Yep.
So we'll see what happens the rest of the year. But yeah, that's all. We'll see. Again, we'll reserve judgment on how good Brock Purdy is. I know he's playing really well right now, and I think some people get the idea, oh, he's just a system quarterback. I don't think that's entirely true. I think he does a good job making plays on the move and kind of reading stuff ahead of time. I don't think it's all just Kyle Shanahan just calls the play and is like, here, throw it here. No, I don't think it's that simple. But it is easier when you have Kyle Shanahan calling the plays.
Well, I think he's got a when I watch Brock Purdy play, and let's get into the Dolphins now. I mean, Clark, I see Tua. That's what I see. If you take out the injuries and a bunch of the nonsense about Tua with the hype and the first round pick stuff, you get rid of that, they're running basically the same offense.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of the same throws. So I'm watching it just going it's literally he's just doing exactly what Tua would do in this type of deal. And, I just think he's perfect for them. But, talking about the Dolphins, they managed to win the game against the Giants, and bad news, Devon A-Chain looks like they put him on IR, so he's going to be out at least 4 games. So that's unfortunate for Miami because the guy was absolutely tearing it up. And before Christian McCaffrey's game on Sunday night, he was leading the NFL in rushing. So that really sucks as a Dolphins fan. But look, they got the win. It wasn't the prettiest game. They were a little bit sloppy, made some mistakes on offense, but you know what, Clark? What's impressive is they won that game easily. Like, it wasn't even like, oh man, that was really in doubt. No, they had control of that game the entire time, even though they basically handed the Giants 10 to 13 points. It didn't even matter. Like, that's how good the Dolphins are. And by the way, I saw it, a few weeks ago. I'm like, when the Dolphins play average or below average teams, we're going to smoke them because they have no answer for what we're doing as long as we don't screw it up too bad. So, positive ones, and we're running the ball, and it's starting to look like the 49ers running game, which is like, man, that's really something. I have concerns about the defense, and we'll find out. We're not going to find out this week against the Panthers. I mean, if the Dolphins lose this game, they have nobody to blame but themselves. This should be the easiest win of the season. They're 13-point favorites, which I can't remember the last time the Dolphins were 13-point favorites. So
the Dolphins are. I'll just say this: the Dolphins are fun to watch, which is cool. We haven't had a fun to watch Dolphins team in a while. And they're going to beat up on a lot of bad teams. But I think we both still have concerns about. I don't think they can really beat really good teams. I don't see it because you're going to need Tua to be special. And I don't trust the Dolphins' offensive line. And defensively, you can clearly move the ball in the Dolphins' defense. I mean, that doesn't seem to be a question at this point. We'll see if it gets better. But, I still have a lot of concerns. Like, for instance, they play Kansas City. I don't, I'm not looking forward to that game. They got to play the Eagles. I mean, we'll see if Tua survives that game. I mean, Jesus, I'm really worried about the Eagles' defensive line against the Dolphins' offensive line. So we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, look, we're going to find out in a week and a half against the Eagles whether exactly where we're at with this team. But that being said, Clark, the speed is out of control. Like when A-Chain took that ball and ran, and the safety took the angle and he just like went right around him. Like, and you can see it watching the game. Like, oh dude, that's a bad angle. He's going to blow by you. And it's incredible. The speed on the field and the, Tyreek Hill catching the screen pass and running for 60 yards. I mean, it's just, I can't remember this much speed on a team before. This is absolutely insane, what they can do. But we have the same concerns we had before the season, the offensive line and the defense. And now that it looks like Armstead's going to be out for a while, so they're going to be using a backup left tackle. And, I'm reading all these articles on Finsider or whatever it is. Like, how is Liam Eichenberg still starting, So I don't know what's going to happen when we play because the Eagles are just monsters. So, I look at it like it's funny, like where we go as a Dolphins fan. Like, I could be flying high if I want to, but my attitude is just, can we keep Tua healthy through the Eagles game?
As a Dolphins fan, here's the only outcome that you should be like, I just absolutely have to have this and everything else, forget it. What you want at the end of the Dolphins-Eagles game, you want Tua to go walk over to Jalen Hurts and like, hey, buddy, because we played at Alabama, good to see you. Have a good rest of the season. And then they'll both go back to the locker room. The reason you want to see that is because it means Tua survived the game. Okay? That's why you want to see that. Okay? Regardless of what else happens in the game, just hope that they're like, hey, buddy, good to see you. And then
Yeah, it's a sad existence as a fan. I don't like it. This is why I didn't want to draft him. I don't want to deal with this every goddamn week. Is he going to get hurt on every play? I'm listening to and this happened last year. Like anytime he takes a sack or whatever, everybody's like, "Oh man, what are you doing?" It's like, he's playing quarterback in the NFL, right? He's going to get hit. We have to accept that that's a reality, and that's what sucks. It just sucks that and I'm sitting here every week, and I hate to be the sadist, but I'm just waiting for it. When is the injury going to happen? Like, what's it going to be? Like, it doesn't have to be horrible, but that's the thing. Like, people are mistaking, like, oh my God, it's going to be career ending. No, it doesn't need to be career ending. All he's got to do is, break a rib or, sprain a wrist or, sprain an ankle or whatever. That's all it has to be to totally derail the whole thing.
Yeah.
So, but that being said, I mean, they're doing their job. Like, they're doing their job to the best of their ability. They're putting him in the best the quarterback in the best position to succeed. They're getting rid of the ball quick. They're trying to run the ball, which is what we were preaching the whole offseason. Guys, you got to run the ball. You can't be throwing the ball all over the place, even though I know you have dynamic players on the outside, but you can't just be throwing it whenever you feel like it. And so it's, I'm happy with the performance so far. Let's see how it goes next week.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm gonna rattle off some NFL takes. First of all, from the start of the season, okay, there are 3 teams that I never believed in, that people were telling me, hey man, like these teams are going to be good. People were telling me that, from the beginning of the season. I'm just like, what are you talking about? Like, I mean, the Cowboys are on that list every year, so I'm not going to include them. But these 3 teams, I thought people were way too high on, and I didn't understand why. The Bears, the Falcons, and the Steelers. Now, I understand the Steelers and the Falcons are both 3-2. Like, you can try to tell me that they're good if you want to. Go ahead, have fun. But Atlanta needed a last-second drive to beat Houston. Okay, they should have really lost to Green Bay the week before, or 2 weeks ago, whenever it was. Like, I'm not buying Atlanta at all as some kind of 8 or 9 win team. And the Steelers, I mean, whatever. You can support the Steelers all you want. They're a complete fraud. That's 3-2 by I don't know how in God's name they're 3-2. They're behind in every game. Their offense does jack shit every game. They can't do anything. Their only offense is every once in a while Kenny Pickett will throw a 40-yard bomb to George Pickens. That's the only move that they have on offense.
Yeah, I think basically if you want your team to finish, at 500 or right above 500, you just add Mike Tomlin. Okay, just do that. You'll finish above 500 somehow, some way. Like they'll just hang around and grind out these games. They're not winning the Super Bowl. They're not going to win any playoff games. But they'll finish above 500. I think we kind of know that's what's going to happen. They'll just sort of eke out some of these games, and their defense will just T.J. Watt will make enough plays, and
It's fine. Just don't tell me they're good. Don't try to tell me that's a good team, because it's not. Okay, It's a bunch of crap that they've thrown together. Our defense is awesome and we'll win this way. Good luck. They can't run the ball. Their offensive line sucks. Like seriously, Baltimore just dropped all kinds of passes in the game the other day, and that was just a freak show of a game. They should have won that game easily. So yeah, I don't buy the Steelers. Another one was the Bears. Like the over/under was 7.5. I'm like, in what world are the Bears going to win 7 games? Like, forget what's happened this season. Before the season, I'm like, what are you guys talking about? This team is a rebuild. This is a full-on rebuild. I know they made the trade for DJ Moore, so their offense should be better. And by the way, their offense did play better against Denver. It played better against Washington. Like, okay, they're making some positive strides. It's fine. But this team was never going to compete for the playoffs. Like, what are we talking about here? Like, that just blew my mind. Like, I don't get it. And I'm a Justin Fields supporter. I still am behind him. I think the guy, I'm hoping that he figures it out. I'm not bailing on him yet. But this idea that the Bears were going to be good, I'm like, they got no players. What are we doing here? So I don't think and I think people are overreacting. I think people are going crazy on the Bears. Oh, they got to fire Matt Eberflus. I'm like, why? Like, they've got nothing. Like, so anyway, so those 3 teams. Then there's 3 teams that I liked that nobody else did. Oh, did you have something to say about the Bears? Did you have something to say about the Bears, or did I get
so I was just going to say, I agree with you on the Bears and the Steelers. The Falcons, I still think the Falcons can compete for that division. Right. I like Arthur Smith. I think he's a good offensive coach. And I like Bijan Robinson. I like some of their pieces. Which that's fine if you think, oh, they're kind of a fun team, and I kind of like them, and maybe they can. I mean, the NFC South is not very good, so me saying they can compete for that division isn't really saying all that much. So if you think that, fine. But like, were people saying they thought the Falcons were going to be like an elite team or something like that?
Well, I think the over/under was like 8.5 or 9.5, and not an elite team,
right.
But that. Right, but that they were going to win, I don't see it, Clark. I mean, I think the Saints are going to win that division. I think they're clearly the best team, and I think Atlanta's okay, but I just don't. I don't know. I don't buy it. I don't think this team's going to be legit when it comes down to it.
They haven't finishing 7-10.
Right, but they haven't beaten anybody good, and
no, exactly.
I don't think they're going to
beat anybody good. But I could see them finishing 7-10.
So yeah. Yeah, I get
But
that.
if you think about it, 7-10, you're right around 500. So that's all I'm really saying. I'm just saying they're not
right.
terrible. I'm just saying they're they're whatever.
Yeah, I just don't. I just never was a believer. The three teams that I liked that nobody else did, everybody was telling me, "Oh, I don't know about this." Blah blah blah. The Rams, number one, people this year like, "Oh, they're going to be bad. This is a rebuild." Blah blah blah. And I'm like, Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford. Like, I know Cooper Kupp was injured, but like they're going to be bad. They still have Aaron Donald. Like, I didn't buy it. I'm not saying the Rams are going to win the Super Bowl or anything. But this idea that they were just going to be terrible and have a top 5 pick next year, I'm like, that's garbage to me. And we've already seen it. Like, I don't think they're a great team, but they're hanging in there in these games. They hung in there against the 49ers. They played a lot better against the 49ers than the Cowboys did. Yeah. So I think the Rams are good. I think they might be competing for the playoffs. Do I think they're going to like get in and do any damage? No, they don't have enough players for that. But they do have good enough to be able to compete every week. That just kind of blew my mind that people were just like out on the Rams. The other one was people weren't necessarily out on them, but I felt like it was just kind of like the Packers and the Bears at the same over under. They're both 7.5, and I'm like, how are these teams the same? Like I just didn't get that at all. I'm like, the Packers are way better than the Bears. Like, I don't think the Packers are great. I don't think the Packers necessarily go into the playoffs, but they're not going to be terrible. Now, it doesn't make me look good the last 2 weeks. They haven't played very well. So, but I still think the Packers are going to be decent.
They've had some injuries too, like David Bakhtiari on the offensive line and one of the running backs. And Jordan Love, he doesn't look all that great. Maybe that changes over time as he gets more starts. I don't know, but that's going to kind of hurt them, and it's going to make it difficult for them to beat good teams. But I mean, they get to play the Bears one more time. They haven't played the Vikings yet, and the Vikings are going to be without Justin Jefferson for like a month, and the Vikings are they're 1-4. I mean, the Vikings might be looking at trying to draft Drake May or something, or maybe they're a couple injuries away from being in the Caleb Williams, for being like, oh, we could get Caleb Williams. So, the Packers are still, maybe they're still competing for a playoff spot. But, yeah, I think the Lions are clearly, and also given the fact that the Lions played the Packers and kicked the shit out of them. So I think the Lions are clearly the best team in that division.
Yeah, the other team, and this is the least controversial, was the Seahawks. I think the Seahawks are really good. I don't think they're elite, but I think they're really good. I think they've got all kinds of weapons on offense. The defense is starting to come around. I know they beat the Giants, and that's not really an accomplishment. But, I think the Seahawks are going to be good. I think they could win 9 or 10 games. And I think they're, talent-wise, they're as good as anybody outside of Philadelphia and San Francisco in the NFC. So I think they're right there. The other thing I want to talk about is, Clark, we went through 5 weeks. I think Denver and New England, those are complete tear-down rebuilds. Like, that's where we are. Those two teams are bad. Like, that is a complete tear it down to the studs and start over. I don't know that there's a whole lot of redeeming players on either team. Denver probably has a couple more, but New England has no talent. I never understood it from the beginning of the season why people were telling me, oh, I think this team's going to be... They have no players. And this has continued to happen. The talent drain on that team has been going on for I don't know how long, and especially since Brady left. And last year Brady was there, they weren't good on offense especially either. They had hardly any talent, and it's just gotten worse from there. So I don't know what's going to happen with Bill Belichick. I don't know what's going to – Sean Payton's probably going to stay in Denver, so we probably don't have to worry about that. But, yeah, Clark, I'm shocked. I'm not completely shocked on New England. I am shocked on Denver. We thought coming into the season, based on last year, okay, the defense should be pretty good, and if Sean Payton can just get the offense a little bit better, they should be kind of competitive. Man, the defense is bad, and, I know people are going to tell me, well, Russell Wilson's not the main problem. Yeah, but he's a quarterback who's going to be making $50 million a year real soon. Like, this ain't going to work. Russell's not playing well enough to justify anywhere near his contract, and this is just, I don't know what they're going to do, but this isn't going to work, man. Like, those two teams from the beginning of the season, like, that is just straight up scrap it, throw everything in the trash, and start over.
Yeah. The Patriots, I just, the game has passed Bill Belichick by, and it's just a question of how long is it going to take for Robert Kraft and the other people there to accept it and move on. I mean, because I just don't like, and the thing is, I think people get the idea, well, they're really bad, they could go get Caleb Williams, and I'm like, that would help them to an extent, but, you know, I mean, again, it's hard to play offense in the NFL now when you don't have a lot of weapons. And if you draft Caleb Williams, fine. You think they're going to draft like good wide receivers? Because the last 20 years have indicated that they clearly have no idea. That Bill Belichick clearly has no idea how to draft good receivers. Okay, he basically has no idea how to draft anybody good. Sometimes he gets lucky, I guess. You know, I mean, so yeah, they literally need to move on. I mean, this is like, and Patriots fans, like, I don't understand, you know, do you really want him to just be there until he breaks Don Shula's record? I mean, you realize that, like, he'll do that, and then there'll still be plenty of people who will be like, yeah, but he cheated, which, you know, he did to an extent. I don't know how much.
Not to an extent. He did.
Yeah.
He cheated.
Yeah.
There's no extent about it.
There's going to be a lot of people who just they're not going to like it. You know, they're never going to really give him the credit for that. And also, look, I've been saying this, you know, Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, like, if they keep winning like this over 6 or 7 more years, they win a few more Super Bowls, people are going to start going, you know what, maybe that's the best.
Well, that's the other thing, Clark. I mean, Bill Simmons was talking about this on his podcast. Andy Reid is only like 50 wins behind Belichick. So and obviously he's going to be gaining on him pretty fast for the next 4 or 5 years, it looks like. So the thing is, like, Belichick might be in some trouble. Forget him breaking the record. He might get passed anyway. So I don't know how Belichick looks at this, but yeah, that could be that may not even matter.
Do the math. Okay, if Andy Reid coaches for 7 more years and the Chiefs win at least 10 games, which I think a lot of these years they're going to win more than 10 games, like 12 or 13. Okay, so 7 years, that's like 70 games. Okay, probably more, between 70 and 80 games. So it's not that far-fetched, you know. So Patriots fans, it's like, do you guys really want to cling to this? You won 6 Super Bowls. Like, it's over. You know, Belichick, right. We've got no indication that he's going to modernize what he's doing or bring in a GM or bring in a creative offensive coordinator. No offense to Bill O'Brien, but, I mean, you know, there's a lot more creative offensive minds in the NFL than him. So, whatever. I mean, look, if the Patriots are just going to be bad for several years and they can't let go, like, okay, I'm a Dolphins fan. Like, go ahead and do that. I'm fine with that. But
well, yeah, that's the funny part, Clark. I enjoyed the Dolphins winning. I enjoyed the Patriots getting shut out a lot more.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Yeah.
That was just fabulous. You couldn't have asked for better. The Dolphins win, the Bills lose, the Patriots get shut out at home. Like, that was a pretty good day. Denver couldn't come through and beat the Jets for us, but whatever. You can't have everything. So any other NFL things you want to talk about?
I'm trying to think if there's anything else going on. I don't think so. At this point, yeah, no. I mean, what do you think? What are your thoughts on the Bengals at this point?
The Bengals are hanging on, and they're going to be. I think the Bengals are going to be one of those teams that they're going to get better from here, because Joe Burrow looked like Joe Burrow again. Like, he was hitting deep balls, and he was moving a little bit. I think he ran on a couple of plays. So I think he's getting healthy, and I think he's going to get healthier every week. And I think they're going to get better every week. And they're going to be a team you don't really want to play when we get to December. But they have a tough stretch of games here the next 2 or 3 games. But the way the AFC is kind of going, like, I think they're going to
question that too. I'm looking at the AFC. I'm like, who is, like, again, if you're asking me to pick a team, I guess I'll just pick the Chiefs. You know, but the Chiefs have some issues. They're not unbeatable.
Right. Chiefs aren't playing well.
Yeah.
The Chiefs aren't playing well. And once Travis Kelce went out of that game, you're like, what are they going to do? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, Travis Kelce was out of that game for like 20 minutes. You're like, what the hell are they going to do now? You know, because I don't know about these receivers. And yeah, no, the Chiefs have got some issues. And Buffalo is like Buffalo's good is really good. But you've also seen that they just kind of no-show some games.
Yeah.
They kind of took the Jets game off. They went over to, I'm going to give Buffalo a break because they went over to London. I mean, that whole London, the playing overseas thing is a joke. I don't take much from it. So, but Buffalo's not unbeatable. Like they've shown they have the ability to play really well, but they don't do it every week. And so I think it's sitting there. The Bengals, like if they just continue to get better every week, they're going to be in the hunt. It's going to be difficult because of, they're 2-4. So
2-3.
It's going to be 2-3. Okay. So it's going to be difficult, and they have the next couple of games. I think they play the 49ers and they play the Seahawks, and I forget who else. But they have a really tough stretch of games, and so, but again, and after Thanksgiving, football is different than football is now, and that's another thing I worry about with the Dolphins. Like the game changes when you get into late November and early December, and so we'll see, where they're at that point. But yeah, I think the Bengals are coming, and they're going to be a problem.
Yeah.
They're not going to probably get one of the top 2 or 3 seeds, but it doesn't matter. You get into the playoffs, and they're not going to be fun.
Right, so yeah, is there anything else you wanted to?
Well, we haven't talked about the NBA since all the trades went down.
Oh,
so Damian Lillard got traded to the Bucks, which that was out of left field. Like we didn't even know the Bucks were interested. Like we didn't even know that was a possibility. And then they pull off that trade to the Bucks, and then Drew Holiday goes to the Celtics. So, I'm still of the mind that the Celtics still have to show me. Like I'm not 100% in on, this will be fine, it'll be great, with Kristaps Porzingis and Drew Holiday. Like it'll be no problem, and it's just all going to work out. And I'm listening to Bill Simmons, honored Celtics fan, telling me, well, they have the best top 6 in the NBA, and I'm going, top 6 of what? Like I just like, what are you talking about? Top 6 pizza places? What are you talking about? I think Boston's got to show me. I don't see, like, everybody's like, oh, well, this will help their offensive issues late in games. No, it won't. Their offensive issues late in games are going to come down to Tatum and Jaylen Brown with the ball, and they're going to have to figure it out. That's what it's going to come down to. You're not going to Kristaps Porzingis or Drew Holiday with the game on the line. That's not how this team operates. Now, will Drew Holiday take a shot? And is he not afraid to take a shot? Yes. And I trust Drew Holiday a hell of a lot more than I trust Marcus Smart. I agree with you there. But you can't base an entire playoff run off of that. I think the Milwaukee, the Lillard thing, I think it's a home run. Does it mean they're going to win the championship? No, not necessarily. It's still difficult. And it doesn't mean like, oh my God, they're a juggernaut. No, the Bucks are very, very good. But they still need a lot of things to work out. Damian Lillard's defense is going to become an issue that they're going to have to work out and figure out how to deal with. Chris Middleton not playing as well the last couple of seasons. They're gonna have to figure out where he's at. But I think Giannis and Lillard are going to work great together. Maybe I'll be wrong. Maybe I'll be out of my mind. But as far as the players that have come together in the last decade or so, this to me is about as good as it gets because their skills just complement each other so well. Giannis is a great screener. Damian Lillard can do anything in the world you want off of high pick and roll, and I think they're going to be sensational at it. So I'm still taking Milwaukee as a favorite in the East just because I trust them more, but that doesn't mean I am, hook, line, and sinker. Milwaukee's definitely the best team. We'll see. But for Boston, they got to show me. They got to show me that they're capable of overcoming these issues, and we got to talk about coaching, right? We're not sure about the Celtics coach at all, and the Bucks are trying out a new coach. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. I mean, well, the Celtics coach, we already have reason to question if this is going to work because he was really bad. I mean, Eric Spoelstra was tired after that Eastern Conference Finals from running circles around Joe Mazzulla's ass. I mean, Jesus. And the Bucks, I mean, look, I'll just say this for their coach. If he can just avoid putting them in really bad situations like Mike Budenholzer continuously did, even though they somehow won a championship in spite of their coach, then that's probably okay. Because who else are you going to be playing against? You're going to be playing against the Celtics. Okay, well, they've got their issues. The Sixers, look, I like Nick Nurse better than Doc Rivers, but, is James Harden still going to be playing, a lot during these games? Like, what's going on? I don't know. And then Miami just didn't get better. They probably, if anything, they probably got worse. And then beyond that, it's like the Knicks. I mean, come on, that's kind of it. So yeah, I think the Bucks in the Eastern Conference, I would favor them. But if you're asking me for the favorite for the whole NBA, I'm taking Denver.
Yeah, we are Denver Nuggets supporters on this podcast. I'm sorry, man. Like, you're going to have to prove to me that, first of all, there's nobody out there better than Jokic right now. Like, I love everybody else. Jokic is the best player, and the combination of him and Jamal Murray is pretty awesome. And they just showed in the playoffs they can play defense too. So, yeah, I know they lost Bruce Brown. I get it, but I trust Denver to figure it out because they're a good organization. They play the right way, and there's no question about what they're going to do at the end of games. I'm not worried about them offensively at the end of games at all. I know they know how to deliver. In no way am I concerned about that. So now would it be an awesome finals if they played either Boston or Milwaukee? Absolutely. I'd be looking forward to it. But you're asking me, I'm sorry, I'm not falling for this Phoenix bandwagon crap. I still think Denver's winning the title. But I really like Damian Lillard in Milwaukee. I think that is great, a great fit for him. It's still a relatively small market team, and he's not the biggest star anymore. He doesn't have to. It's not all the pressure is not on him anymore to deliver. This is Giannis's team, and he just needs to do what he does, which is awesome enough. If he's a great offensive player. If he just does, you just get that. That's all they really need. And try your butt off on defense. I think they've got a better chance of figuring it out than the Celtics do. But I love both moves. I love both players that were traded, and I love both moves.
Yeah. People can try to talk themselves into the Lakers or Phoenix, but I'm just, again, you guys are going to have to, like, the Lakers, come on, guys. Even when we were watching it last year, we were like, well, Anthony Davis doesn't really bring it every game. LeBron is, he's pretty old now, and he can't, he really, really has to pick his spots, in these series because he gets worn out, and his jump shot, we'll see if it's better this year. It was pretty bad last year. And, the rest of the team, look, he's got a functional team. So I think the Lakers will, they'll have a better playoff seed this year. I mean, barring some really long-term injury to like Anthony Davis. But, they'll have a better playoff seed this year, and I think they could probably win a series, maybe two.
I think the Lakers are going to be really good in the regular season. Their depth and their overall talent is just going to be really, really help them. I think the Lakers are going to be an awesome regular season team. I wouldn't be surprised if they win more games than Phoenix does. I don't think Phoenix is really built for the regular season at all, and I think that's going to be, they're going to have some problems. And if they get banged up a little bit, that's really going to be devastating to them because they just don't have the depth that the Lakers have. The other thing, Clark, like I know people people kind of panned the Chris Paul to the Warriors move, but I think Chris Paul and the Warriors is going to work. I don't think this is going to be, oh my God, how are they going to coexist? I think they're going to figure it out. I just don't think you can win the championship with that team. That's all. I just don't think they're a championship team, but they're going to win games. Like, I think they're going to be pretty good in the regular season. I think they've got a nice team. I think the Chris Paul thing works.
Yeah, I think that they're going to end up moving Chris Paul. And I'm not saying
That's
that because I think
possible,
it's not going to work. I think it's going to work fine. Steve Kerr's smart enough. Chris Paul's smart enough. Steph Curry, all those guys, they'll figure it out. And he'll be playing pretty well. And then I think they'll try to improve their team. More on Steph's timeline, and they'll try to move Chris Paul for something else. I mean, essentially what they did was they had to get Jordan Poole off the team, so they moved Jordan Poole. But they had to take on Chris Paul's contract, which I guess is up after this year. So yeah, you can, like, closer to the trade deadline, you could probably move him. Maybe you can get something for him. Maybe there's some other team that needs a veteran point guard, to help them out, like coming off the bench or something like that. So we'll see. I agree with you. I mean, people are just getting, oh, is it going to work? Well, yeah, it's going to work, but that doesn't mean they're going to win the championship. Like, they're
right.
Still undersized. Klay Thompson's not the same player he was. Steph Curry, he gets banged up. He's been getting banged up throughout his career, essentially. And they just don't I don't see a lot of depth. So, same issues as last year.
Yeah, I think it. I don't think that it necessarily made it any better as far as winning the title goes. But I think that those guys are smart. They'll figure out how to play together. I don't think that's a big issue. The bigger issue for me is Phoenix. I don't know how Phoenix is gonna do this. I don't know about this team. They get into the playoffs. I know they had to get rid of Ayton. I support it, but Nurkic is not going to be the answer for you. Like he's okay, but you can't be playing Nurkic 35 minutes in playoff games. That's not a good idea. And the guy is not a really good defender at all. So I don't, I support what they did. I understand why they did it. I'm not faulting them for it, but I'm just saying, like, I don't know how, and what other moves do they have to make? Like, it's not like, oh my God, they have these assets that they can move to get stuff for. They just moved the only asset they had. So, yeah, I mean, everybody can buy into Phoenix if they want to. And I don't think Phoenix is not going to win the title because, their bench isn't good enough. No. It's because their starters aren't good enough, And so, and again, I keep saying it. Who's playing defense on this team? Like, I'm trying to find who it is. Who's playing defense? Because none of these guys really play good defense. Kevin Durant is capable of playing good defense, but you can't put all that defensive pressure on him and expect him to come through. Like, Bradley Beal's never been a good defensive player. Neither is Devin Booker. So, yeah, that's my big concern with them is I don't see anybody playing defense on this team. And you're going to go up against Denver like that? Good luck.
Yeah, honestly, I'm going to find it hilarious because I'm not going to go in on Phoenix during the regular season at all. I don't care what happens during the regular season. I'm not going to buy into them. And I don't even care about their matchups in the playoffs. I'm not going to buy into them. Okay? Like, people are going to try to tell me that, and I'm just going to laugh my ass off when they lose to somebody. They lose to the Lakers or somebody in 6 games, and it's just like, God, this team they don't have any depth. They can't play defense. They're too small. It's going to be like, yeah, dude, we fucking told you this a year ago.
Right.
Like, what?
Yeah.
So anyway.
Yeah, we told you. Yeah. What do you think about the baseball playoffs? Who do you think is going to win the whole thing? Who do you like so far?
I don't know. I'm again, I was not really into baseball for many years, and now I'm kind of getting back into it. So I don't know. I mean, the Braves seem to be pretty good, but they're getting their asses handed to them by the Phillies. I mean, I guess you'd say the Rangers right now. I mean, Jesus, they're just hitting the shit out of the ball. I don't know if that's more them or the Orioles or what.
Yeah, the Rangers are crushing it. But the thing is, like, it's funny, like, did getting into the wild card actually help Texas? Because they're red hot. So it's like it's kind of funny, and now they've got to take some time off. I think Houston's going to be tough to beat, and I think Philadelphia is going to be really tough to beat. I just think once Philadelphia gets going, they get the hitters going. I mean, they hit home runs in every single game. I saw this last year, and I'm just like, it's overwhelming, especially when you're playing them on the road. It's just like, what the hell are we supposed to do with this? So I think, we'll see what happens with Texas. That could be a hell of a series if Houston gets to play Texas. And right now Houston is up 3-1 in the 5th inning, and they're up 2-1 in the series. So if they win tonight, they're moving on. So we'll see what happens there. But I'm shocked at
the Battle of Texas. That's pretty cool. Houston and then the Texas Rangers. That's
Yep. I'm shocked at how badly the Dodgers are losing, and we'll see what happens tonight. But they could be out if they lose. So that's been it's been kind of interesting. But yeah, a lot of smaller markets in this one. So we'll see how it goes. But it's fun to watch, man. I don't know if anybody's watching baseball, but the games are fast now. You got to throw a pitch every 15 seconds. These guys hit home runs like crazy. It has been really exciting. So I'm really happy about it. Anyway, all right, let's get out of here. Everybody have a lovely evening and a lovely rest of your week, and we will see you on Sunday or sometime thereafter. All right, have a great night.